What is going on, Florida State family? Seminole Nation and the 863 tribe. It's your boy Polk, a.k.a. a.k.a. the Got Damn Truth. It's Wednesday, the 1st of October. October 1, the start of the new fiscal year. 2026, actually, if you didn't know that. October begins the new fiscal year. And this week is what they call rivalry week, or depending on what side of the aisle you line yourself on, it's Miami hate week or it's FSU hate week, whichever one that may be for you. I would like to thank all of you all for coming in here on 863 Symbols TV, the most interactive show for the Florida State football fan. And today could be the most interactive show for the Florida State football fan and the Miami Hurricane fan. So get in that comments, man, and get and talk. Say what you got to say. We're going to talk a little bit about this game. What to expect maybe from both sides. FSU Miami is usually a very special game for the fans of both programs. It is, at its peak, in my opinion, was the premier rivalry in all of college football. It is one of the only rivalries with the amount of talent that we've seen. One of the only rivalries that, frankly, determined the national championship almost yearly at one point. Now, it has fallen on hard times. This game arguably was supposed to be a lot bigger than it is, and FSU has nothing but blame on their part for that. With that being said, that doesn't mean that this game still can't be a great game. That doesn't mean that one team should expect an easy victory just because the other team maybe got caught looking ahead. You're on episode 123 of The Hangover, by the way. So before we get into the conversation of tonight, go ahead, get in that comment section. So we can do this quick roll call. And again, then we just going to chop it up, man. We're going to cook FSU versus Miami in Tallahassee. Primetime game. I don't know what more you can ask. Two top 25 teams. Thanks to Alabama beating Georgia, FSU didn't fall too far in the rankings. I mean, they fell, 10 spots from 8 to 18. But, yeah, I still expect a good game on the horizon here Saturday, right? So we'll see what happens. Again, get in that comment section and let us know how you're really feeling here tonight. I'll give y'all a couple minutes to do that. Get ready. Have your ammunition loaded if you got some. At the end of the day, this, I think, when you look at it, man, this is probably Miami's toughest game on their schedule. Right? I can't think of another one. FSU, you still have Clemson after this one. You still have the Florida game. We'll see if Florida's beaten, battered, and bruised by the time that game comes around. Clemson's damn near beaten, battered, and bruised. but we'll see what happens. But FSU's got a lot to prove, man. I think FSU has some things that they need to prove in this game. I don't even think this is an accurate statement, because what I was about to say is, do I think FSU is as good as they looked when they beat Alabama? And do I think they are as bad as they to lose to Virginia? But when you really look at it, they didn't play focused. They didn't play a clean football game. They obviously played around when they shouldn't have. Did mental lapses and mental mistakes that cost them that game. And the defense did not look amazing. But all in all, I think if you take that Virginia game, just look at it. It's not a bad football team that you saw in that Virginia game. It was just a football team that I just stated, unfocused, undisciplined. They came into that game believing that they were just going to walk in and walk out with a victory, and obviously Virginia had other plans. So now, what does FSU have to do to erase those mistakes, to um, defend home field again like they did against Bama? You got to know they're. If I see a similar performance that I saw against Virginia, then we can start having some of those conversations about, because you remember, I blamed Virginia loss on the players. I did not blame it on any of the coaches. People have their own, theories of who to blame and who's at fault and blase blase. I stick with my uh, final conclusion on that. The players did not come to play. Well, if that happens for another game, 2 games in a row, now we can flip the field. We can start talking about, if that defense comes out and Miami's able to run 12 plays in a row and run 11 times all the way to the end zone, something's got to break there, and we can probably start having. I think it's a little bit premature to start having these new coaching conversations already with some of these guys. But you see this. If you see a similar performance against Miami, then it may be very well time to start asking those questions. Let's do a quick roll call and continue the conversation. But I got Briley in the building. He says, "Make the betting line make sense. What does Vegas or what do the sharps know that is causing the line to decrease? Is there an undisclosed Miami injury? Why are people betting the line down?" Yes. And the line went from 6.5 to 4.5. What does that ultimately mean? Personally, I think it's some of what we said about the Virginia game. FSU probably left like 17 points on the board if you count the missed field goal and interception in the red zone. Shout out to the Virginia player for making a play, but like, how often would that one happen? So I think when you look at some of the things that FSU did and did not do, I think one expects them to improve, not make the same mistakes twice, basically. KCD is in the building. Pistino's in the building. Jeff's in the building. Josh Johnson, Adangbe, the Almighty, Island Boy, Joe Johnson, Grill Master. I'm gonna call you Keyhole. You're obviously somebody's burner, I think. I'm just gonna call you Keyhole. Panama Jack's in the building. DC Dread. D Thompson, what's good? KCS BG or B Gaines, sorry. Adams in the building. Lewis, Vontae, Jacob, Seminole, Grand Champ. What's good with you? And anybody else that hops in, feel free to get in that comment section and let's talk about it. KCS says, Polk was thinking how you've always let your audience interact with you during the live. With the media staying shut out of practices, these other outlets better take notice or get left behind. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that, KCS. Grill Master, vibes was good. It's amazing. I'm not a genius. God knows. God knows I'm not a genius. Jerg was good. God knows I'm not all knowing. But how long did I say they needed to focus Amari on the defensive side of the ball? Why did it take to the Miami game to potentially do this? You know, I'm not going to do that on this stream, but I will say, you know, good for them. On this particular live stream, I'm not going to do what I was just about to do, but I will say good for them. How about we try to get a good athlete on the edge, which is something we seem to lack. As far as the way the football game may play out, I'm expecting a close game. I'm expecting a tough game, and I am expecting a more focused FSU football team against Miami. Um, let's start off with my thoughts on the Hurricanes, because I believe the Hurricanes are a very interesting team in a very interesting year in college football. I think it is fair to say that there is not an elite team in college football. I think everybody would agree with that. They're like, if I ask anybody right now who's the favorite for the Natty, you'd probably get 5 different answers. Ohio State hasn't looked great. We know Texas hasn't looked great. LSU just lost the game. Penn State just let Oregon go into Happy Valley and do what they do. Is Oregon the best team? Well, Penn State had an opportunity to win that game and kind of blew it. My thoughts on Miami are in a season that I don't want to misconstrue it and say it's a down year, because I don't believe this is a down year. I think this is actually going to be a very exciting college football year. One of the more exciting ones we've seen in a long time because of the so-called parity in college football. What I will say, though, is that because of the way it's looking, excuse me, one second. Because of the parity that I believe is in college football right now, Miami has a chance to be the best team in the country. And I've been saying it even before the season, and I've been saying it since I've started watching them play football. And the reason I say that is because Miami has built a team arguably the right way. And I won't even say it's arguably, right? Where Miami excels at is where you want to excel at. Line of scrimmage. And regardless of whether we think secondary can be exploited, quarterback may not be whatever, do they have any true number one receivers? They can control the line of scrimmages better than any team that I've seen so far this year. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. So when I look at the Miami team and I ask myself and I go, what is this team? How good is this team? Do I think they are elite? No. But I think of the crop, they could be good to very good. And I think that's a fair statement. And they have a schedule that is so favorable to them. Again, this might be their toughest game of the season. You know, they can avoid the mid-season letdown to Syracuse, or something like what happened to them last year, the late season loss to Syracuse. That is ultimately what kept them out of the playoff and all that, right? If they can avoid that, Miami's got a chance. But first, they got to get through Florida State. How do they get through Florida State? Well, just what I just said, controlling the line of scrimmage. We watched a Virginia team that I believe was down 4 offensive linemen on 4. They were, I think, 4 offensive linemen, right? We watched a Virginia team that was down 4 offensive linemen, go on a 12-play drive, and 11 of those plays were running, and they scored. Am I still in Korea? No, not in Korea. Thank God. We watched them do that. That's concerning. Right? That's concerning. So if you ask, how does Miami win that game? Well, that's how they win it. You don't need Carson Beck to throw for 300 and something yards. if you can just line up and do really what Mario wants to do, and that's just run the football. Um, so that's to me how they win. How they, I believe they, and I guess it's supposed to be raining, so that could also, we FSU's got a little bit of experience in playing in some rain. Uh, Both teams are going to want to run the football. If you look at their offensive lines per PFF, so you take that with a grain of salt. But if you look at their offensive lines, they're actually quite equal. FSU's offensive line has been pretty good as well this year. The way we play football is a little different, so you don't really get to see Thomas Castellanos sit back in the pocket and make throws because that's not his strength. I believe the O lines are fairly even. You can give the slight edge to whoever you want, but again, if you check the individual grades, they're almost identical to each other across the board. So, which like Pettis and Maui Goa are grading out the same. So your two best offensive linemen, arguably, are those two guys. The centers are grading out similar. Like, just go down the line. And we know FSU's going to want to run the ball. We know Miami's going to want to run the ball. The X factor for the Seminoles is really going to be not can you run the ball, because I think we all feel like we're going to be able to run the ball. How do you implement Castellanos in running the ball? Because he's going to be the X factor there. Right? So if we talk about just how the offensive are going to attack each team, I think those are the similarities. I think where you have the big question marks are going to be, is FSU's D line going to actually show up? Are their linebackers actually going to show up? Because they did not show up against Virginia. When Carson Beck does drop back the throw, can you pressure him? If you can, again, if you can stop the run, then you got to say, can you get to the quarterback? Right? There's certain things there that I think FSU's going to have to. That FSU's front seven is going to have to play a hell of a lot better, in my opinion, than it played against Virginia. I don't think that's a question. I don't think anybody can debate or deny that. So I think that's the major question when you talk about these two football teams. Again, I think the O-line play has been fairly even. You can argue the only big difference is the level of competition. Though, again, go back and watch Bama versus Georgia. That defensive line looked a lot like the Bama defensive line that we expected to see. Whereas that Bama D-line did not look like that against Florida State for whatever reason. You can chalk it up to whatever excuse you want to chalk it up to. The facts are that the best D-line Florida State played, they pretty much handled them. And Miami has done a good job, I would argue, against probably two good defensive lines in Florida and Notre Dame. And I don't even say Notre Dame with confidence because, to be honest with you, outside of that Miami game, I haven't watched much of Notre Dame to know if that defensive line is that good. How good is it? I know they started 0-2. But they just demolished Arkansas this past weekend. So that would be a question. That would be a question. Let me go to the chat after I'm giving my kind of initial thoughts here. Let's go to the chat and see what people are saying. Florida might beat Texas on the side note. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest. I have a hard time seeing it unless Lagway plays in a way we haven't seen all year. I have a hard time seeing it, and I don't think Texas is great, but I think Arch played better against an Ohio State defense that probably is the best defensive in the country. I think Ohio State, one of the top, let's say, 3 defenses in the country. Arch played better against that defense then and I don't know where you'd rank Miami's defense, but Lagway threw for 60 something. You're like, I think Texas has the edge. That's just me. Give me a second. Grillmaster says, honestly, Bama can still be legit contender for that. Bama's still in it. That win against Georgia has put Bama in the thick of the SEC, right? Whoever you, th- whoever you think is the favorite in the SEC right now, Tennessee has a loss, Georgia has a loss, and Bama doesn't have a conference loss, and Texas doesn't have a conference loss. So I think Bama plays Vanderbilt this week. Yeah, I think that's the game day game. That's a huge Vanderbilt and Bama being a huge SEC game is kind of crazy, but that's kind of where it's at. Yo, Bama's in the thick of it for sure. Joe says our D line is not strong enough to get home. I'm trying to bring it up here without scheme blitz packages. That will be a must. And load the damn box and let our DBs play. So I agree to the point of I think they're going to need to bring pressure. They're going to need to bring pressure, and whether that's from the secondary, whether that's from the backers, not sure, but they're going to have to, like you're saying, scheme up some blitz. What's up, Zay? I'll read this one from a Miami fan. He says, "What? I think he said, "What up, folks? Haven't realized is that we Miami still haven't had our full team yet. Our top running back, wide receiver haven't played this year. Who's your top receiver? And our top tight end is coming back from injury. Who's top receiver? That's a good question. Who do you feel Roy Dell will hurt us or help us with the physical abilities to pound them? No Diddy. And then we flex the speed down the line. Does Roy Dell help? I'm interested to see how Gus divvies up the carries. Though I don't blame the offense for Virginia, I do think Gus, for some reason, man, Sawchuk didn't have his best game against Virginia. And he's been arguably the number one back since week one. But he didn't have his best game against Virginia. And it felt like the running backs that were hot, for whatever reason, we didn't keep them hot. Whether that was Chroma, who had some good runs. We all talked about Keziah Holmes had two big runs back to back, and then we didn't go back to him, not only in that drive, but for the rest of the football game. So my question is going to be the running back rotation. Rodell's been out since game one. What does that mean? Probably not a starter. You probably definitely want Rodell for some pass pro. Would be my guess. I don't know if he helps. I don't think he hurts. It's a good question. It's a good question. New King says, O-lines aren't even, and he puts some laughing emojis. Funny how I just went on like a 15-minute talk about Miami and their strengths, and the first thing he can come back with is me just saying that the O-lines are even. No acknowledgement of everything else I said. Anyway, Miami's played in a nothing but rain games, which I didn't say hurt Miami. So, again, I think you're just listening to what you want to listen to. I said I don't think the rain helps or hurts anybody. I just said FSU had the rain game, the big rain game against Miami is all I said. But, yeah, it's been raining in Miami too. So, okay. Let's go to the next point. Hasn't really had the chance to open up the offense because you haven't needed to open up the offense or been forced to. So this O-line has been going against 8 men in the box. FSU's played against 2 high school teams, and Miami's played against 1. Whoop-de-doo. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? What are we talking about here? What are we talking about? Uh, what's up, brother Jay? What's the number to call in? I don't really do a call in. Feel free to comment though. Oh, Trader's your guys' number 1 receiver. Okay. Okay. So let's continue then. I'm caught up in the comments here. Let's continue. Um, so I spoke a lot about the trenches already, and we kind of know. Again, I think our D line, the way it played against Virginia, is a weakness. Now, the way it played against Bama, we get that. So FSU continues to have these question marks, right? I still don't know if we know what kind of team overall this Florida State is. Again, are they that team that beat Alabama? Maybe they're a notch below that. Are they the team that lost against Virginia? Maybe they're a notch above that. So we got to wait and see how this team looks. If we go to like the skill positions, let's go to quarterbacks before let's go to quarterbacks because this is where it gets a little interesting. And I already said, I think TC is an X factor because of his legs. And FSU wants to run the ball. Because of the legs, how does Miami play that? I don't think Miami's had a quarterback that can scramble on their schedule yet. So, they're going to be gunning for TC. TC continues to talk. He likes to talk, man. And shout out to TC. He backed up the Bama talk. But he loves to talk, and he's talking about Miami too. So they're going to be gunning for him. So he's got to protect himself, obviously. Gus is going to run him. And how does Miami adjust, or what is the game plan for that? Is it a spy? If it is a spy, is it Basaint that spies him? Is it somebody else? What I've been impressed by TC so far this year has been his accuracy for the most part. His interceptions have been kind of fluky, and I'm not really counting the last one against Virginia. That was just that's a Hail Mary type pass on one-on-one coverage. Shout out to the Virginia player. He made a play. And the other 2 is just him being short. I'll stick to that. Him being short. TC's been very accurate. I mean, the play that should have tied the game, he put it right in Deuce Robinson's hands. So does he keep that downfield accuracy? Does he keep making the good decisions on his passes, which I feel like he's done? That's kind of the X factor, I think, for Florida State offensively, because if they cannot contain him, or if he's able to do what he can do, that will obviously open up some of that stuff. And maybe we can see Mekhi Danzy, who was kind of a no-show against Virginia. We can see Danzy. Deuce, I expect to be a big matchup problem on the outside. We've seen that so far this year. And then is Squirrel White healthy enough to be another downfield threat? I think Boggs is questionable for this game, but LaWayne McCoy, I thought, had some solid routes and was solid in the Virginia game. So you got to get him a little bit more involved. I think we kind of knew going into this year, LaWayne McCoy and Boggs were pretty much neck and neck, and I didn't see a drop off there with LaWayne McCoy. And then Pittman getting him back is going to be – he is the goods. The tight end, 13, he's the goods. So I would love something that FSU hasn't done that I thought they were going to do in the preseason. I really thought FSU was going to utilize more tight end play, and for whatever reason they haven't. Can we do that in this game? I see a super chat. Let me get to that. I'll take the Jamie or the Mario. My man KCS with the 9.99. I got you. I opened the show up with Mario, so let's get some. Let's watch the Jamie.
Bitch, be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down.
Moving over to Miami, you got Carson Beck. I don't think Carson Beck has really had to be put into position to be challenged or win any games for them this year. Can FSU force Carson Beck to throw the ball? Is going to be key. They got that wide receiver number 10, I think is Tony. It's pretty good out there in that, like in the slot. They're going to try to eat the middle of the defense up, which FSU struggled with again against Virginia. And I expect Carson Beck to be on time. He's better than Morris for sure. And FSU got the backers and all these things. However they plan to play that, they got to be ready for that. That 1-2 combination. I didn't talk much about FSU's running backs yet, but I will for Miami. I know they got Fletcher and they got that other dude. I think his name's Brown. Miami's got a solid run game. I think they were in the chat talking about the best running back hasn't played yet. I'm assuming he'll play against Florida State. So we'll see how that plays out. If FSU's going to win, I think they have to take their chance to have Carson Beck's got to have to throw the ball. If FSU's going to win, they have to force Carson Beck to throw the ball. And Carson, what I will say about Carson Beck is his velocity on his throws might, to me, and it's kind of a small sample size, but I'm kind of judging off of the Florida game and some of the stuff I saw. And he even threw a bad pass in that Notre Dame game that just the wide receiver made a hell of a play on. But that's an interception if that wide receiver doesn't go up in one hand snag that. So it wasn't a great pass or a great decision by Beck, but the receiver bails him out. If you can force Beck to do some of that, that interception he threw to Cromartie McClain, I felt like he just didn't put enough on that ball, and Cromartie was able to undercut it or whatever. Can you force some of that? Can you take advantage of some of that? I think that is a key for Florida State. Because we'll see. We'll see. Oh, my camera just. Hold on. I don't know what just happened to my camera, but it decided to do some other stuff on me. Give me a second. What the hell? Okay, I'm back. I don't know why my camera just decided to click off. Probably should get a new one. Yeah, I would. That's kind of what I want to see. Let's get to the. I was about to get to the comments before my camera just cut out on me. Since we got Miami people in here tonight, y'all better bring your boy LM in here Saturday. Oh, speaking of that, yeah, where is LM at? Shout out to KC, man. He dropped $99 in the last live stream we did with the bet for LM. LM claims that he's going to match the bet. I don't see him in here tonight. If you in here, come on, speak up, my man. You talked a lot of cash in that Virginia live stream. Yeah. Come with it. Come with it. What's up, Antoine? Carson Beck isn't good on the deep ball. He doesn't have the arm strength this year. I don't know what that was, Joe. King Cook says Malzahn needs to keep Tommy on the move. Throwing from the pocket ain't his game. He needs to be able to create. I would agree with that. I'd agree with that. The passes against UF weren't hitting. 0 for 7 on passes past 10 yards. That's what I'm saying. I think Beck can eat in the middle of the defense on those short passes where really have to number 10 is where they have killed teams. And can you force him to take some deep shots? I like our corners. I like um, Rawls in particular. So we got to see. We got to see how that plays out. Again, what can you force Miami to kind of get out of their game plan? And if you're Miami, can you force Florida State to? Can you force TC to just drop back and throw? Can they stuff the run? Now FSU's been running the ball on everybody. You can say, oh, they played whoever, but they ran for 200 plus against Bama. They ran for 200 plus against Virginia. Should have won that game, but we're not going to get back into the Virginia game. What can you do to force whichever team out of their comfort zone could be the key to winning this game. I think that's also what hurt us a little bit against UVA. Tommy was in the pocket a little too much. I think that what hurt us was that guys weren't focused. Colin says so Colin must be a Miami fan because he says if we can't get Beck going to be a long night. Well, to push back a little bit on you there, Mr. Colin, do you have to get Beck? That's the key for me. Like, you can talk a lot about these other position groups and haven't really covered the secondaries yet and all that. And I'll be honest, I'm not educated enough on Miami secondary to really have an opinion on them. They haven't played a quarterback, in my opinion, worth the damn. Notre Dame was playing a true freshman game one in that environment and saw how that played out. And they had a busted coverage in that game, if I remember correctly. Lagway's been absolutely god-awful. The USF quarterback is not very good at all. So the question's really going to be, is TC the best quarterback they've played? And if so, can he exploit some of this stuff? But as far as Beck goes, again, my question is Miami have to put the ball in Beck's hands? Can they just run the ball? That's the concern. That's the concern I have. Oh, so he's saying, well, your comment said if we can't get Beck going, it's going to be a long night. I think you're trying to say if we have – okay, he said FSU fan. What he's trying to say or what he meant to say was if we have to make Carson Beck beat us or it's going to be a long night. I get it. And I agree with you there. If you can't if first of all, if Beck can just sit back there, then there's going to be a long night. And if you can't, again, force them to pass the ball, they can just line up and run on you. It's going to be a long night. Miami hasn't been on the road. They haven't been tested in the secondary. USF wasn't Miami in Florida. Wasn't that game in Gainesville? No, that game was in Miami. You're right, because last year's game was in Gainesville. Yeah, Miami's got a breezy schedule. Shout out to Miami administration for putting this schedule together because they've had a breezy schedule so far. I ain't mad at it. Just telling you what it is. Miami's had a pretty breezy schedule so far. King Cook says we got to respect my. Yeah, I agree. That's the strength. Boggs is active. One second. I say rush three, drop eight on the long passing downs. I'm not a fan of it. We play a primary zone. Uh, you're going to find the hole in the zone, I think, if you do that. I'm not a fan of that. You got to get pressure, man. If you can't get pressure, then yeah, long night. Long night. Long night. So there's that. Um, Tempo. One of the things that I feel like FSU hasn't really done so far this year, they've ran some tempo, but I don't feel like it's as fast as Gus. I've seen Gus Malzahn's offensive go. I don't know if that's just because in today's college football, when you're flipping rosters every single year, you maybe can't run the tempo that the guys aren't maybe accustomed to running, or the tempo that Gus wants to run. I feel like we could use more tempo, but you have to have positive plays to kind of run the tempo you want to run. So that's going to be interesting. Another interesting development. What's up, Terrell? Casey says, man, when's the last time UM had a tough schedule? It's like the ACC has allowed them to make the easiest schedule of the last 8 years. And again, what's up with you, Terrell? Terrell's in the building. So let's go to second. Well, we haven't talked about backers and we haven't talked about secondary yet. So if we go to the backers, let's start with the backers. Let's start with Florida State. If I start with Florida State, I'm going to start with Florida State just because I'm more obviously in tune with FSU's linebacker play than I am with Miami's. Them backers they better play better than they played against Virginia. Again, if you go back and watch that game against Virginia, defensively, man, we just didn't play well. We just didn't. The D line obviously didn't help, but even when the D line quote unquote did their job, man, the backers they were all over the place. They didn't fill the correct gaps, man. You got to go back and watch it and be like, man, we really didn't play up to par how we should have. Jeff with the $10, he says, I think you'll see a better focus, more physical team. I think you see a better effort than we saw against Virginia because it's a rivalry, and we'll wear them out on their defense when we have the ball. I mean, I hope so, Jeff. I hope that's the mindset. Come in, try to wear them out. Appreciate you, Jeff, as always, for the donation.
My name is Jeff.
Ronald Burkins. The problem with tempo is that if you're not successful, you can wear out if you're not successful, you can wear out the defense. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Basically, try to go tempo and you're not successful. You're talking quick drives, 3 and outs. Your defense is back on the field. So you're not wrong there. But they're gonna have to try to do. You're gonna try. You have to wear. You're gonna have to try to wear out Miami's defense. Because what you don't want is Ruben Bain and these other guys pinning their ears back. You don't want Thomas Castellanos, regardless of whether he can run or not. He doesn't need to be running for his life on every play. So you're going to have to try to catch them off guard, get them tired. Then you see if the running game can open up. Juice is the only decent backer we got. Still dealing with Miami's Randy Shannon. We'll see, man. Ronald actually thinks that we should slow down the game, huddle, run the play clock down to the last second. If you don't believe that if your main concern is the defense, and you don't believe the defense can get stops, then that is a recipe that you can try to employ. I don't know how they're going to attack it. None of the linebackers play good. I mean, we can talk about Juice being the best one, or Elijah Herring, or whoever you want to say. I don't believe against Virginia that any of them played particularly well. That's just my opinion. Uh, F the Canes, go Noles. Say it again, Dustin. Bring some energy. I'm sorry if I'm not bringing the energy. I'll try better. um, it's a rivalry game, man. That's really what you take from these type of games is, I mean, unless it's like last year where one team is obviously like outmatched. I don't think that's the case this year. I think you got to look at it as this rivalry game. Anything can happen. Both teams are going to be pumped. Miami knows what's in front of them. Florida State knows what's in front of them. Florida State gets a win, then they're right back in the mix of things. Florida State takes its second ACC loss. You can pretty much count them out as far as any major postseason stuff goes in terms of the ACC championship, in terms of the playoff, right? You're pretty much dead in the water there. You can still have a successful season, but that stuff kind of gets eliminated. For Miami, you're kind of in I would say a win-win situation almost, because even with the L, that just means you're right in the pack in terms of the ACC goes. And then, again, the way your schedule lines up, even after this game, Miami could legit be a one-loss team. They're going to get in the playoff, right? King Cook says, I want to see the Desir boys over. See, I don't mind that. The problem with our D-line, and I'll address that. The problem with our D-line, for me, Cook, is the fact that, and I've talked about the Desir twins a lot, good football players. We need explosive edge rushers, and we don't have it. It's definitely not number 10. And to be fair, I don't think that is not the Desir's game to be elite pass rushers. It doesn't. Obviously, they're playing good football, but we got to have somebody off of the edge, man, who can do something, right? Who's explosive off the edge. If we can't, and Amari is the only player that I can think of that kind of fits that bill, but they haven't used them for whatever reason. For whatever reason. Anton says that tempo will wear down Miami's defense. Bain wants to get in the backfield, wear them down. Thoughts on James? James hasn't been, I think, what a lot of us were hoping. No other way to say it. I don't think James has been as good as we were hoping. Maybe this can be a breakout game for him. Let's hope. You think Miami's offense is better than Virginia's? I'm not sure they are. Great question. Hard to tell. I think Miami has a more pro-style conventional offense. Is it better than Virginia's? It's probably not as explosive as Virginia's. But again, if they can control the line of scrimmage, then they're going to be able to do what they want to do when they want to do it. It may not yield better results in terms of total yards or points, but it will control the football game. I don't really want to say they're a better offense than Virginia, or I really don't want to say Virginia has a better offense than Miami. I think Miami knows who, and Miami has an identity. Let's put it like that. And they're going to stick to their guns. Can you force them out of that identity? That becomes my question. What's up, AZ? There's that. So if you can't tell by now, I really think the key of the game is the O-lines and D-lines. If Miami can get pressure and force us to do, or if they can stop the run or whatever the case, get our offensive at a sync, which has been, our offense has been damn good so far this year. If they can control the line of scrimmage, then Miami's got a great shot, right? If we can control the line of scrimmage, then I think we got a great shot. Like again, if we play like we played against Bama, we're in the mix. If we don't, I don't know. I don't know how that game looks. I don't expect a lopsided game either way. I really don't. I think these two teams are going to be. I think these two teams are going to come out pumped up, and I expect a hard, really physical game. FSU's got to clean up the stuff that they did against Virginia. FSU's got to tackle, like wrap up tackle, not hit a guy and expect them to fall over, right? Actually wrap up. Earl Little, I'm talking to you. Don't just lead with your shoulder on every tackle, man. Get in there, wrap guys up, right? You gotta take good angles. If it was up to me, I wouldn't even play number one in this game, but I have a feeling number one's going to play a significant amount of snaps just because that's what they've been doing. I talked about number one at length on defense. It is what it is there. The rotations are going to be very interesting. Omar Graham, I don't know if he's hurt. When you go back and look at the Virginia stats, you go, man, Omar Graham, I don't know. I don't remember the stat off the top of my head. But I want to say he played like less than double-digit snaps on a linebacking rotation that was struggling. What is that? Is that because he's hurt? He played in the game. I want to say he had like eight or 10 snaps. I don't remember the amount of snaps he had. Somebody can look that up. But I know it wasn't a lot in comparison to the rest of the linebackers. Well, why was that? Is he a liability in some way that they didn't feel like they could play him a lot against Virginia? I don't know. But Omar Graham is a linebacker that I think we expected to have a bit more of an impact this year. For him to play that minimal snaps against a Virginia team that you could have used them, you got to ask the question, why is that? Is that an injury? Is he hurt? If he's hurt, then I get it. But then again, if he's hurt, why is he playing at all? Well, probably because FSU doesn't have a lot of depth right there at that position, so you had to get him in a little bit. So a guy like Omar Graham has a chance. South Florida guy. I'm sure he wants to play in this game. His number might be called on a lot to be a playmaker and make some plays in a linebacking group that needs to play better. And then FSU's got to use some of that, because one thing I don't think I saw much in the Virginia game, I'd have to go back and watch it again because I don't quite remember. Stephen Thompson, the linebacker that we got from Nebraska, he was effective at rushing the passer, right? When we talk about not having like a legit pass rusher on this team and a guy that can kind of beat a guy one-on-one on the edge, he was that against Alabama. Thompson was giving Proctor hell in that game. And yet I don't recall the time that I saw that in the Virginia game. Now, did Virginia just block him up? Again, I have to go back and check it. But I don't recall seeing Stephen Thompson even being used on the edge in that jack position to rush the passer. So a lot of questions, I think, for Florida State defensively, right? Defense was the problem against Virginia. How does it respond against Miami? Because you're going to need them to respond in this game on Saturday, in this primetime game on Saturday. Last questions. Suppose we lose this game. Can a 10-2 FSU get in the playoff if we run the rest of the table in convincing fashion? I don't think so, because I don't think 10-2 even gets you into the ACC championship game. When you look at the way the ACC is constructed, and I mean Georgia Tech plays Louisville, so that's kind of a big game. But when you talk about even a team like Virginia already, right? Virginia's now in the heat of the ACC talk. Like, there's a chance your two teams in the ACC have one conference loss or none. I don't know. I think two conference losses put FSU behind the curve there. So I'm just not sure. Panama says I would go with the 4-2 against Miami to at least slow down the run game. At this point, our linebacker play is so atrocious. Let's try out Bates, Keziah Holmes. Hell, put Lester there, but I'm done with our linebackers. Yeah, I mean, you named. I don't know why you named Keziah Holmes. You want to put Keziah Holmes at linebacker? That's crazy. Bates at linebacker is what you're saying? Damn sure don't want to put Lester out there. I don't know. I don't know about any of that. Yeah. You lose this game, then you're 3 games behind. Yeah, I don't. Losing this game doesn't bode well for your. Even if you were to run the table, it doesn't mean it's not a good 10-2. Every FSU fan would take 10-2. You'd be a top whatever team. Would that get you into the playoff? Unless it's a situation where everybody's just beating up on everybody, I think that's a tough cookie. It's a tough cookie. Yeah, King Cook says, no, we can't lose 2 games and get into the playoffs. I don't see it. Didn't Clemson get into the conference title game with 3 losses? I don't know how many losses they had, Jeff, but the point is that your contending teams don't play each other. That's the point. Georgia Tech's already beat Clemson. Who is left on their schedule that's going to really pose a threat to Georgia Tech? I mean, the games have to get played and they remain to be seen. Ultimately, like I said, teams are going to have to beat up on each other for a 2-loss conference, FSU to have an opportunity. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying when Miami and Georgia Tech don't play, and these teams that are now in the mix for that, and they don't play each other, it's hard to say. You know what I'm saying? Like Florida State doesn't play Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech really got a really easy ACC schedule themselves, with only getting Clemson. A team like SMU does not look that good this year. How good is Virginia? I guess we'll continue to find out going forward. Actually, I think Virginia plays Louisville. It's either Virginia or Georgia Tech plays Louisville, so that's a kind of a big ACC matchup there. What I didn't understand is because, I spoke on that. What's that running back rotation look like? How much of Chroma do we see? How much of Keziah? Do we see Keziah at all? Do we see how much of Roydell with him coming back? How much do we see? So you really got to – we knew coming into the season, running back by committee, there hasn't been a guy that I think that they want to break out just yet. So we're going to have to see how that one plays out. Jeff says, I don't know who thought it was a good idea not having divisions. And then you had the screwy schedules. It don't make any sense. Play Georgia Tech should be a honor schedule every year. Well, it should be on our schedule every year. They went to the whole – I think why most of the conferences – I think almost all of them actually, except for like the Sun Belt. The reason they don't do the divisions anymore because the thought process was getting the best 2 teams with the best 2 records. Whereas, for instance, when the ACC did have conferences, it was Florida State and Clemson. So the winner of that game was the de facto Atlantic winner. In that Coastal Division, we saw it when FSU was on top. They were playing Duke in the conference championship. A 3 or 4 loss Duke team because you beat Clemson already, so they're out of the way. I think that's why they did that. They did that for better conference games. So in theory, if you can beat Miami, there may be a situation or a chance that you see Miami again in a conference championship. Who's Miami's backup? I think it's Emory Williams. I think that's their backup. I think. I think that's their backup. So yeah, man, Florida State's really got to and I don't know if I sound like I'm enthusiastic or not. I actually am excited for this game, and I think FSU again. I think FSU is going to show up uh, and play a good football game. With the line being 4.5 against what is Miami? Is Miami number 3? I don't recall Miami's ranking. Um, I think that speaks well. We'll see what Vegas knows or doesn't know. The defense is just going to have to show up. That front seven is going to have to play a lot better than they played. Um, KCS says, I'm glad we don't have the divisions, at least from an ACC FSU standpoint. The 1 year Miami played for it, they had no business being there. Um, yeah, like I said, the reason they did it is to get the best, didn't to get the best two records in the game. So I don't personally have a problem with getting rid of the divisions either. But as we know, when it comes to FSU, when it comes to the any any conference outside of the Big Ten and SEC, there's a major bias there. I mean, the SEC is already petitioning for 3 and 4 teams to make the, because we play, these crazy schedules, and it's like, well, again, we're in a day of college football where it's about awarding pretty losses and not so much about rewarding quality or just wins in general. Um, yeah, that's my take on it. That's my take on it. So we're gonna have to see. But I like FSU's chances. I like some of the matchups. There's not a particular matchup that Miami has that necessarily has me worried, other than the O line versus D line. Everything else to me is good on good, man. Play your athletes against their athletes. Who's going to go out there and make a play? That's really the way I look at this game. There were multiple years where FSU and Clemson would have played twice. Yes, and that's ultimately why they did that, because of those years, because of the years that, again, FSU and Clemson were by far the best two teams in the conference, but they played in October. And that side of the divisions was already wrapped up after that game. And the Coastal is always a crapshoot. Georgia Tech 1 year, Duke another year. Almost every team but Miami was winning the Coastal. And so you were getting what would be considered not great conference matchups. Is why they ultimately did what they did. I do PT on my own, so. But I appreciate your concern about my physical fitness, Johnny. But yeah, I do PT when I want to. Thank you. Here's what's crazy: Miami and FSU might be the two best teams in the conference, but we can lose. But we can lose or win this game and still not make the conference because Georgia Tech and Virginia have weak schedules. On offense, read the blitz, get the ball to your backs, and play wide receivers. On defense, stack the box and uh, dial up pressure. I'd be interested to see how much does Miami blitz. You said on offense, read the blitz. I don't know. Again, I'm not. I've only watched Miami and Florida. And again, when I'm watching these games and some of these other teams, I'm not as dialed in. I'm doing something else in the background, usually just have the game on. So I'm not dialed in enough to say Miami does this X, Y, and Z in terms of, like, does Miami blitz a lot? I feel like they probably don't blitz a lot. That's my thought process. I feel like they don't blitz. I feel like they probably feel that they don't need to blitz a lot. FSU's going to probably need to blitz. UVA will mess around and lose to Louisville because they're too high on the FSU win. Offensive penalty wasn't called. Offsides penalty wasn't called. Would have ended the game. My fear is that Virginia doesn't have nearly the same level of athlete that Miami has, which I think is a valid conclusion because I don't believe they do. And I'm very concerned that they just might have more quality depth, which I would say they do. um, that's one of the main like concerns. Again, I don't want to sound like I am just giving Miami the game. But I think what Virginia just might have exposed some of the concerns we had in the preseason in terms of depth. Because a lot of people talk about James Williams and number 10 and what he can and can't do. Fair criticisms, in my opinion. But I ask the same question over and over. Well, people are like, you should bench him. Well, who do you bench him for? Oh, Blake Nicholson sucks. Okay, maybe he does. Who do you bench him for? We can talk about all these players that we don't think are performing or underperforming, and that may be accurate. But then I say, where's the depth? Who are you bringing in? That's a concern, right? That's a concern. We could afford to lose Miami if Clemson wouldn't have lost to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has a case. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Georgia Tech's already taken care of their major game. They won that game. So we can't afford not if we're, I don't believe we can afford to, unless you believe that the ACC is just going to beat up on each other too, which is possible. Anything's possible. Joe says, is Mike ever going to be on the hot seat? And if he keeps doing this dance by having a losing season, then winning the next year? Well, he's I'm not going to speak on the Mike Norvell situation. He's what's Florida State 3-1 right now. He beat Bama. That game gave him some grace. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see how the rest of the season plays out before I start spinning up the old Mike Norvell X, Y, and Z. I'll give Mike his just due there. It's still Mario at the end of the day. He's not done anything that as time in Miami except lose 3 bowl games. Well, we can argue that, but hey, I'm not going to sit here and go to bat for Mario Cristobal, but eventually, sometimes coaches do get over the hump, whatever that hump for Mario Cristobal may be. Somebody in the conference is going to beat Georgia Tech. Probably. I don't know if Georgia Tech's going to go undefeated, right? So I don't necessarily disagree with that. I don't think Bama has more depth than Miami. I take Miami over Bama all day, every day. T. Noles says, what's up? First time. I feel like the linebackers on both teams are going to be critical. So what do you think about our linebackers then, T. Noles? What's up, Peter? Who do I think has more talent, Miami or Bama, head to toe? Let's go down. Ty Simpson or Carson Beck? Who do you got? I think Ty Simpson has played well outside of that first game of the year. I thought he played extremely well against Georgia. I would probably give the edge to Ty Simpson over Carson Beck. Running back, I would probably give the edge to Miami's backs. I don't think Bama's backs are anything special at all. So I would give the edge to Miami's backs. Okay, so we're 1-1. Receivers, well, you're going to give that to Bama all day, even with Ryan Williams dropping balls left and right. That other guy is probably the best receiver. Not probably. He's the best receiver on Bama's roster, and he's legit. So I would give the edge to Bama's receiving core. And Bama has a former Miami wide receiver on that receiver. So I would give the edge to Bama's receiving core over Miami's. There's that. O-line, I would say Miami's O-line as a unit has played better than Bama's. Individual talent is interesting because Bama's got some guys that are probably going to get drafted fairly high. As a unit, I think Miami plays better. But if we're talking talent, let's just go ahead and say that that's even. You go to the D lines. That's another. I might push the D lines too. I might say the D lines are fairly even, in their totality. Hard for me to speak on the backers. I'll let you guys pick the backers, and then the secondary. Probably Bama has a better secondary. Probably two even teams. Probably very even. Appreciate that, Peter. My man Peter Shields in the building with the $20. He said Miami week, go Noles. That's right, baby, go Noles.
Clickety clank, the money goes into my piggy bank.
What positions do they have more depth? Are we still talking Bama or Miami? Or are we talking FSU? Miami beats Georgia by a minimum of 2 touchdowns. Knock it off. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that at all. I don't like when we start playing this triangle theory on football because that's not matchups matter, right? If Miami beats Georgia by 2 touchdowns and Florida State beat Bama and Bama beat Georgia, I don't know how you come to the conclusion. I really don't. I really don't know how you come to that conclusion that Bama would beat or that Miami would beat Georgia. I mean, unless you just feel like Miami, unless you're just high on Miami, which is fine. I can't come to that conclusion. Georgia has a lot of talent. Georgia doesn't have the same caliber of defense, I think, that they've had in years past, which is why Tennessee almost beat them and why Bama, I believe, was able to exploit some things. But, yeah. FSU has a better quarterback, arguable. I think they have a quarterback that it's hard. Anytime we start talking quarterbacks and saying TC's better than a Carson Beck, if you ask NFL scouts that, they're going to say absolutely not. For the college game, you may be correct. FSU has better running backs. I don't know if that's the case. I like FSU's running backs. I think Miami has a good stable of backs. I do believe FSU has better receiving core. I would agree with you there. And I would probably agree with you that FSU has a better secondary. But quarterback and running back, I can't really co-sign those. Marco thinks Miami's a legit natty contender. I would argue, Marco, any team in the top 10 is a legit natty contender. I think this season is going to be one of those seasons where I'm not so sure you're going to get an undefeated squad. And I'm not so sure you're going to have a one-loss team. Now, you still got some undefeated teams out there. Oregon and Ohio State, I'm pretty sure they probably play this year. Like, you still got some, but Vandy's still undefeated. That'd be crazy. I think Indiana's still undefeated. So, but those teams are all like going to play each other that I'm naming, right? They're going to play these tough games. I think it's one of those years, man, where you're going to have your national champion team. I mean, Ohio State lost 2 games last year and was the national champion, but they also had by far the best talent on their roster. I think, but I think this year is going to be like that. I think you're talking about a 2 or 3 loss team being the national champion this year. Almighty says, hold on. The only question that matters, can FSU block Bain and 3 on the line? I said it before, I said it again, I like our O-line. Bain and Pettis is going to be a hell of a matchup. Pettis has played really well for you this year. Really well. So that's going to be a hell of a matchup. I think both your tackles have played pretty good for you. So I think I don't know if it comes down to can you just block those individual guys as much as it just comes down to can you establish the line of scrimmage as a whole. Um, I think they can block them. That doesn't mean Bane won't make plays. That doesn't mean that good players make plays. Good players make plays regardless. But can you keep him from having a special game? Yeah, I think so. The Ross has been great. Ross has been really good. I think he's been the most impressive corner. And I'm not even sure it's close. Yeah, Ross has been pretty good. I don't think Russ a gimmicky offense, in my opinion, is what do we consider gimmicks? In my opinion, Gus does not run a gimmick offense. He runs the ball, right? He is very heavy on the run game. I think what we call gimmicky or what we used to call gimmicky. Um, I don't think people no longer call it gimmicky. To me, gimmicky is unconventional stuff. Um, a lot of I don't know, like halfback, a lot of wildcat. I don't know, stuff like that. I don't know if I would call it gimmicky. I think he runs what he runs. But Gus is going to line up and run the ball, and he's going to find different ways to win the numbers game on the run. That's what I would say. And he mixes in the motion. He tries to play to the numbers. So he tries to get your defense to believe that the play is going this way with and then plays to the numbers. So that's kind of how I look at it. When I say unconventional, to me, unconventional is flea flicker and shit that you don't practice routinely if you play football. You know what I'm saying? That's what a gimmick is to me, or unconventional. Just because he's calling a lot of motion, like that is college football today. That is football in general. There's a time where a lot of this stuff is considered gimmicky, and the NFL has adopted a lot of it, and a lot of stuff I wouldn't necessarily call gimmicks in today's game. It's playing to the numbers, and I believe Gus plays to the numbers. I believe in our first team offense. Players are 100% healthy. We win by 16. FSU 42. Miami Jones. Okay. I would put D-Jack and Win on the field at the same time. Well, we haven't seen that. That's hard for me to say, Peter, because I don't really know what I have there. Again, here's my problem. My problem is the edge guys. Now, Win might be that good. D-Jack is D-Jack, and I stuck up for him against Virginia, and I'll stick up for him now. The misconception that guy's supposed to be, like even a 5'6" sack guy is my problem with the expectations of people that, D-Jack is supposed to be getting way more. Like, that is not his game. Go watch Virginia. He was getting triple blocked. He was getting triple teamed. Right? So Bama was triple teaming him. Like, the guy is facing double and triple teams, and that leaves, so I don't know where Win fits into that, because he's a 6'4", 330-pound freshman, not exactly a pass rusher either. You would like to pair D-Jack with somebody that can actually get up the field, in my opinion. So the problem to me is the players around D-Jack. It's not D-Jack. And I don't know if Win solves any of that, because that's not his game either. Win is the one who's going to take the mantle from D-Jack when D-Jack moves on. Win is going to be your next nose guard. So I don't know. I believe if we're not that, Miami could win by 10. The NFL used to talk so much shit about sports offenses and spread offense. Yeah, that's why I don't call things gimmicks. I would argue, you want to talk about gimmick? What would be considered a gimmick today is stuff that they were running 40 years ago. Triple option is now a gimmick. Seriously. The triple option, the wing T, those are the gimmick offensives nowadays, stuff that was conventional. So I think that's how the game has evolved. Who's going to step up for FSU? Well, let's talk about who has to step up for FSU. For FSU to win this game, your D-line, the entire D-line has to step up. That's just off rip. D-line's going to have to play. Backers are going to have to play. Guys are going to have to look like they played against the Bama for FSU to win. Offensively, your quarterback. I'll probably that's probably the same thing I'm going to say every week when we talk about Florida State, especially in close games or games that we aren't necessarily favored by. How Thomas Castellanos plays will dictate the offense, and I will stick with that because even if, again, and I don't blame TC for last week at all. But if you don't throw that interception in the red zone and we get points, like that's a different game. Like so things like that. But I don't blame TC. I'm just saying how he plays, I think, dictates the rest of the offense. And then, damn it, receivers, catch the ball, please. Deuce, don't juggle the ball for 10 yards. Catch the ball. Just catch the ball. Just catch the ball. Yeah, I think they do. I think we've seen that they have it in them. I don't think that's a question. It's not that they're not capable. I don't think that's the question. I don't think the question is, are they capable? I think the question is, are they going to play with that same chip against Bama? I think that's the question. I get it. You can say it was a catch all you want. You can say it wasn't a catch. I'm not here to even argue. Again, I'm not arguing with you whether that was a catch or not. I don't even think it's necessary to have the argument because you made a play harder than it should have been is my argument. That was my argument that night. We can argue whether it was a catch. The pass wasn't like he had to reach out here for the football and bring it in and bobbled it. He hit him right here, center mass. For anybody that shoots, he hit him center mass, and you did this. Catch the ball. Catch the ball. You're gonna be an NFL player. You got to catch that football. Last week would have played for the win, not OT. Again, we talked about that on Friday night. If he would have missed the 2-point conversion, y'all would have cried and said Mike Norvell need to get his life together. So for me, I didn't have a problem with going for the field goal and taking it into overtime. The talent level from UVA to FSU, that game shouldn't have been close. Well, unfortunately, John, that's not how football's played. It's not how football's played. I would agree with you that they had too many offensive linemen out for your defensive line to be as inept as it was. But football's not played on spreadsheets, right? It's not played by depth charts, not even played by what your injury report looks like. It's played between the white lines. And the white lines is where the truth gets told. Point blank, period. That's where the white lines on the field is where the truth gets told. And while I am a big believer in talent with no heart, and I'm not saying FSU didn't play with no heart, but talent with no heart, a great player with no heart or low motor will get beat by a good to average player with great heart or high motor. FSU came out there, I won't question their heart, but FSU came out there with a low motor. And they got, before they could try to turn it up, there were 14 points in the hole. There you go. Now you're playing from behind. And now you've given the underdog that belief that they can win. That's another thing, that fumble. Again, that's why I said I don't blame that loss on TC at all. FSU did a lot of boneheaded. You beat yourself. You beat yourself. You fumbled it, bobbled passes, turned it over in the red zone. Like, again, that's 17 points. The Sawchuck fumble, you're probably going in for a touchdown on that drive. The interception, you're going in for a touchdown on that drive. And then the missed field goal, that's 17 points that you left on the board. If you're Florida State, nobody to blame but your own. What made 2-10 football team think they could walk into UVA and not play with 100% intensity? Because that Bama game was that. The Bama game was what the Bama game was. The Bama game was what I tried to tell everybody in the chat. I know we're kind of getting off topic with the Miami, Florida State, but y'all know how I rock over here. Y'all start asking questions, I start answering them. Y'all already know there's been nights when we start talking about video games. So it is what it is. But to answer your question just directly, you had the Bama game, put you on Mount Everest. Unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know how you look at it, the next two teams were nobody teams. So you weren't challenged. And I was listening to, might have been the Noles cast, I forget who it was, but I thought they made a great point that I think showed up in the Virginia game. I actually think it was Niall Lawrence Stamper that said this on the Noles cast. Go check. Y'all all probably know the Noles cast. Niall Lawrence Stamper will be on Noles cast now, so go check that out. That's my unofficial plug for them. But he pointed this out. FSU looked like they were unconditioned in Virginia game, meaning they looked tired. But the reason why that makes a lot of sense to me, the last two opponents before Virginia, your starters literally didn't play. In 2 games, your starters played a total of 1 game. There's a good chance they weren't conditioned to play a full 4 quarters because they hadn't had to, and you had a bye week. So in 3 weeks, you're talking about starters playing 2 quarters a game and then having a bye week. They came into Virginia just not ready. In the hindsight, you could have said, well, they should have played more, but we know we can't afford the injuries. So I'm not blaming the coaching because you pull guys out when you're blowing the team out. You should do that. But guys just weren't conditioned to play that 4 quarters of football, especially when you got into that 14-0 hole. Those 2 games were fool's gold for sure. There's no denying that. Those 2 games were fool's gold. And it revealed itself in maybe ways we didn't expect. And that's in the preparation and the conditioning, in the mental of that team. That team was definitely on a high horse after winning 66 and 77. And they thought they were better than they were. In crunch time, who do you give the coaching of X's and O's to? If it's a close game down the stretch, who would I give the edge? They both have shown the propensity to muck up under pressure. So the only game to me that stands out that I thought Mike Norvell coached, and I won't even say he coached bad in a close game, I just thought there was a couple plays that he probably would have liked to have back, is that first LSU game. I actually, and please get in the comments and jog my memory. I can't think of close games that Mike Norvell had bad play calls down the stretch or bad clock management. Well, we know that's not quite the case for Mario, but please jog my memory if you can think of more games than that first LSU game. Mike usually does a pretty good job, in my opinion. Now he'll let his nuts hang sometimes, and he might call something that you go, "Hey man, you sure you want to call this?" Like against Bama, but it worked, right? I I can't think of a situation where Mike didn't call a timeout when he should have, or burnt timeouts early, or was running the ball when he should have been in. Like, I can't think of any of that, but feel free to remind me if he did. NC State 2022. Okay. Okay. That's a good one. That NC State, yeah. He probably, yeah. I think that NC State game was, so correct me if I'm wrong, is when he wasn't, I think he was kicking field goals or something, and Fitz wasn't hitting them, and we kept trying to kick field goals or something like that. Yeah, I vaguely remember that game, but that makes sense. I'm curious to see how the tempo works out because you have two offenses complete. Yeah, you do. You have, again, a more pro-style offense, a team that wants to really chew the clock, run the football. Mario won't throw the ball if he doesn't have to. I'll just tell you that right now. Where you have another, offense that wants to speed it up. Gus loves to run the ball too, but he wants to play at a fast pace and do some other things. Two different styles of offense. Okay, so everybody's saying the NC State game. So, yeah. Yeah, okay. I remember asking why we threw a fade to Pittman when you got 6'7" Johnny Wilson. Yeah, okay. So that game's kind of coming back to me. UF 21. I don't know. I don't think Mike coached a bad game that game. Your quarterback got hurt. Jordan Travis doesn't get hurt, and Mackenzie Milton just sucked. Just call that. I'm gonna just call that one for what it is. I agree. Yeah, that pass to Pittman was pretty egregious. There you go. I knew it was something. Like I said, I vaguely remember NC State, but I remember something. It was something with the field goal kicker, and then y'all are pointing out the Pittman pass, which I remember now, which was like, why? Talk about an all-time disappointment in Pittman. Yeah, I would call that on the. I mean, ultimately, yeah, we can talk about Jacksonville State. We can definitely give that to the head coach. Ultimately, right? The head coach deserves blames for that type of stuff. But I mean, man, your defensive coordinator. And then, even with that said, if Jarvis Brownlee makes whatever, I'm not revisiting Jacksonville State. Y'all are not taking me down that road again. So, yeah, if it's a close game, it'll be an interesting game of chess to see how that, does Mario blow it? How does that work? So, interesting points there in terms of late game coaching decisions. Who has the edge? So the last play of the UVA game, again, I think TC just threw the ball up. I don't know if that was designed. I don't believe that was designed to go to Squirrel White. I think out of the corner of his eye, he saw Squirrel White had a step, and he just threw it out there. It is what it is. I got a little bit more time, guys. I know it's a little late. It is a Wednesday, so we won't be going late like we usually do sometimes. But key to the game, win the coin toss. Do you defend or you put the offense out there first, Joe? Conventional wisdom says you go defense. But what do you think? You win the coin toss, you defend or you put the offense out there? I have a list of complaints about Mike Norvell, but I don't necessarily believe coaching is an issue or late game coaching is an issue for him. Hit the like button, please, if you haven't, by the way. D first. See if we ready. Yeah, I mean, that's conventional wisdom, right? Get your defense on the field first because you get that stop. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. I agree. Defense first. Interesting to see Tony White's game plan. I would give the overall coaching as I think to. I mean, I like our staff. This new staff. So I would give it to in terms of game situations. I give it to Florida State, and I might be biased when I say that, but I'd give it to him. Say what you want about Mike Norvell. He ain't perfect, as we all know, but he hasn't had the Miami Georgia Tech debacle, right? Like that has not happened that I can think of, where you have the game literally locked up, and for whatever reason you don't kneel the ball, you decide to run the ball. Whether you think the guy was down on the street, it don't even matter. Shouldn't have been running the ball. Should not have been running the ball, right? Put our offense out there first. Let's see. Hey, I'm not. That's why I asked the question because King, I think that's a legit argument to put the offense out there first. Set the tempo. See if you can make Miami play from behind. And it's only one drive. That's not going to get Miami out of their game plan, right? But see if you can put some pressure on them to start the game off with. I don't necessarily disagree with, I'm kind of on the defensive side of the thing. Like, put your defense out there. But I'm not against the notion of putting your offense out there and seeing if you can maybe force Miami to feel like, oh, we might be in a shootout. We might have to let Carson Beck throw the ball 40 times. Let's hope that that's the game plan, that they want Carson Beck to throw that much. That plays into our hand, I think. So I don't think that's a terrible strategy. I agree, Antoine. There you go. Stanley says, I'm a Hurricane fan, and I don't think Mike's a bad coach. From an X's and O's standpoint, Stanley, I agree with you. Mike has a list of issues. I don't think his game decisions are he has some game decisions where you're like, ooh, boy, if you don't get this one, you're going to be answering some questions. But a lot of times they do kind of pay off. So I don't disagree with you. Again, there's other things we could talk about that we won't talk about when it comes to Norvell. How do we keep FSU players calm, having already lost the game? I hope they don't press and start making mistakes, giving Miami short fields, easy points like they did Miami. Pressure is on FSU. I think the pressure is on FSU. I agree, Ronald. I think the pressure is on FSU because you have to, you have to prove that Virginia game was just an unfortunate loss. You spent the first 4 weeks of the season being told how great you were after beating an Alabama team. So the pressure's on you, I think, and you're at home. So I do think the pressure's on Florida State. BK says Miami don't have an offense, and I'm not sold on that FSU defense. They were sleepwalking. So Miami, thumbs down. Hey, I wasn't. No one doesn't think is sold on what we saw against Virginia, so you're probably not wrong. And unfortunately, again, the weakness that you showed against Virginia plays into the strength of the opposite team. Go on defense. Let's get a ball second half with a chance to maybe go up 2 scores possibly. Again, I see both sides of the argument. If you tell me offense, there's some of that makes sense. If you tell me defense, I mean, again, defense is the safe. Defense is what it's the conventional choice. Mike is relatively a baby with the keys to FSU program. How old is Mike? 43. I think he might be a little older than that. I'm not too sure how old Mike is. I'm not too sure how old Mike is. I think he's older than 43 though. I mean, he's been at Florida State for what, six years now? I think he was in his 40s when he took the job. I think. Somebody can Google it. I don't know how old Mike is. You must be on an Air Force base. No, I'm not on an Air Force base, but I'm right by the airport. So, yeah, you hear all those planes all the time. That's because I'm literally, I can walk back here and see the airport. Bain won't get a sack. He is 43. Wow, so he had the job. Mike Norvell had got this job in his 30s. That's crazy. I'm not going to go there. But, okay, shout out to Mike Norvell. He is a young head football coach. Word, because believe it or not, Miami smells blood in the water after our loss last week. And we're going to have to show them. Yeah, you're going to have to definitely show them he's a man. He's 40. Yeah. That guy doesn't have a job anymore. And probably won't be getting a job. He's a man, he's 40, and he's jobless, which isn't a bad thing for a college coach because he probably got a nice little buyout there at the end. A wounded team is a dangerous team. FSU's got to play wounded. FSU's going to have to play this game like, in my opinion, I won't say that FSU needs to play this game like they are 5-6 trying to get a bowl game. Right? I think that is you got to play this game like it's the last game of the season or your season's over. Even if it's not, that's how you have to approach it, I think. Man got the job at 37. That is crazy. Mike's not that much older than me. That is crazy. I don't know if Bama smelt blood. It's hard to say anyone smelt blood in the first game of the season. So I don't know if I agree with that, Jay. I don't think Bama smelt blood. We can argue whether Bama thought that they were going to be playing the same 2-10 football team. I won't go as far as to say that they smelt blood. On the side note, I think it's too early for Kenny to make any comparisons. I understand what he did last year at Arizona State. Arizona State lost to Mississippi State this year. Kenny Dillingham has a lot more of he needs a lot more of a resume, I think, to start talking about him. Dan Lanning, on the other hand, hey, that guy took over a great situation. You know how Oregon supports that program. Yeah, we can talk about Dan Lanning maybe, but Kenny, I think, is a little bit too early to start talking about. Is Kenny a better coach than Mike Norvell? Off topic, Billy blows a call in the fourth, costing UF the win. Billy is fired by Monday. Maybe this is just the FSU fan talking to me. A lot of people have picking Florida to like upset Texas. I don't see it. And to me, when you say Billy blows a call in the fourth, you're assuming that it's a close game in the fourth. And I'm not so sure the offense is going to be. And I'm not saying Arch Manning is great or anything like that. I am saying though, I If you told me Texas like won by 2 scores, that wouldn't shock me. I'm not so sure that game is going to be close. That's just me. Y'all can't wear beards, which I don't have one. Wear dresses nor beer bellies anymore. I don't wear dresses and I don't have a beer belly, so I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay, Marco. Thank you though. Only time you see me with facial hair is if I'm on leave. But I see the upset logic, but I think Texas gets hot. Yeah, I just don't think unless Lagway plays in a way that we haven't seen him play. Like, because even against the Long Island Community College, Lagway wasn't spectacular. Like, at least with Arch, you can look at the lesser teams that they've played and go, well, Arch has played a little better. I don't know. I don't believe the offense can keep up with Texas, and Texas offense hasn't been great. I just don't believe it. UF can keep Texas off balance. They're going to have to run the ball effectively to do so. Thank you, Marco. Florida fans really think they'll get Lane Kiffin. Well, this might be the make or break year for Lane Kiffin, and not in terms of his overall coaching, in terms of him getting a job outside of Ole Miss. I feel like every offseason, Lane Kiffin's a name, but he never leaves. And Ole Miss is now in a position where I think Ole Miss is undefeated. You know, that Ole Miss could be a legit SEC title contender. And if you're Ole Miss, depending on if Lane can get them to the playoff and that Florida job opens up, but ultimately Ole Miss doesn't win the whole thing, like if you don't get Lane Kiffin like now, you're probably not ever going to get him. And then at the same time, does Lane Kiffin ever leave Ole Miss? You feel like there's a bigger job for Lane. At least I do. I feel like there's a bigger job for Kiffin, but it hasn't happened yet. And I don't think the major programs are looking to fire coaches. Like, it's easy for the Arkansas and the Oklahoma States to just kind of fire their coaches. Teams that not only are going to pay coaches the premium salaries, but also have to put together $15, $20 million rosters just to compete on a year-to-year basis are probably not trying to fire coaches. I think that's the one thing in Billy Napier's another plane. I think that's the one thing in Billy Napier's corner is, does Florida really want to pay him whatever the buyout is? And I don't know what the buyout is, but does Florida want to pay that? And then you still have to put together a roster next year because once you fire a coach, the players leave with them, right? So major coaching changes, so these mid-tier programs can do that. But your top-tier programs that invest a lot of money in the roster, and then to be competitive, you got to pay the competitive coaching salary. I don't know. I think we're looking at a different age of football. I think we're looking at a little bit different age of football. If Mike gets let go in a year or so, which, again, I just talked about it. I don't think Florida State is in a rush to fire Mike Norvell. We have to be realistic on that. They didn't bring in Gus and these guys to fire him this year or next year. Even if this year goes south, I still don't see FSU losing more than 4 or 5 games. 8-4, 7-5 does not get Mike Norvell fired. with the potential ACC buyout looming, which we all know FSU sued for that reason. They are going to buy themselves out of this conference when the time comes. Do you want to be on the hook for a major 50 million, 40 million, whatever the buyout would be for a micro? So there's so much money tied up in these different things. I just don't see um, I just don't see it. But to answer your question, I don't think Gus wants to be a head coach. I've said that a million times. I don't think Gus Malzahn is looking to be a head coach. I think if Mike Norvell was to get fired for whatever reason, I'm almost positive Gus would retire or find another OC job. I don't think Gus wants to be a head coach. El Paso is literally a million mile. Like, I don't think UF will win, but I do believe their defense will give Texas fits. UF would be crazy to not entertain Signetti. Even UF fans admit the problem with I have Signetti is doing a great job over there at I was about to say Illinois, at Indiana. The problem with guys like Signetti and some of these other coaches, I believe it comes with that fit. It comes with those when you go to schools like a Florida State, or Miami. If you don't have like Al Golden was a hot coaching commodity, but when you don't have the ties to the state, when you can't recruit in the state, those type of coaching decisions go south quick. Now, is Signetti the next Urban Meyer? Urban Meyer was at Bowling Green in Utah and came to Florida and got that thing pumping. But there's always that risk, right? I agree, Ronald. This has been one of the more, as far as the quarterbacks that people thought were going to be top performers, all of those guys have just not looked the part. Might be one of the poor quarterback classes we've seen in a while. Signetti reminds me of Spurrier. Um, yeah, so that's all I got tonight, guys. It's been 2 hours, so I'm not gonna stay on here too much. I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here. Um, Big game, man. I'm gonna give a prediction and then we'll get up out of here. My prediction for FSU Miami, a game that I will be locked in on. But my prediction for that game, let me sit back. Let me finish this drink and think about that one. I got the score. 31-28, Florida State. I got it 31-28 FSU. That's what I'm going with. Put your predictions in the chat. But that is my final score. I got it 31-28. I think Florida State wins a close, tough one. But ultimately, I think the offense is able to get the job done. I think you got a full 4-quarter game. Miami's going to have its moments, but Florida State's going to have its moments as well. 38-21 is what I'm going to roll with. Tell me I'm wrong in the chat. Sheesh, 44-27. 35-24, okay. That 44-27 is a hell of a score there, BK. 34-20. Marcus, me and Marcus on the same page. 31-28 Florida State. Terrell's got it 34-20. What you got? Come on, drop some more score predictions and we'll get up out of here. Beck with 3 TDs and 7 interceptions. Oh, in the road games last year. Okay, I thought you were saying that he was going to do that in one game. 28-21 FSU. Okay, kind of a low scoring there game from Jacob. 38-27 FSU. 38-28. KCS. He's going to end the night on a. KCS want to end the game. Damn, where's my head at? It's only Wednesday, man. It's been a long week for me. Y'all give me some grace. KCS closing the stream off strong. Says hate. 42-26 FSU. Hey, man. Thank you for the 20. You didn't have to give me 20 for that comment. I would have read it regardless, KCS. But I think, as always, bro, I appreciate your support.
More money. More money.
Tennis girl. First time I've ever seen tennis girl in here. And she comes in here on a piss poor note. 19-5. First of all, that is a crazy score in 2025 football. 19-5 is insane. If FSU only gives up 19 points, we're winning that game. I'll tell you that right now. If we only score 5 points, there's going to be a whole big conversation to that one. But thank you for your prediction, tennis girl. But she's got 19-5 Canes. All right. Galaxy King says 31-10 Miami. I think you're putting a lot of stock in that. You don't think FSU's offense can do anything against Miami. Okay. If Florida State only scores 10 points, I will declare Miami the favorites for the national championship. I will say that right here and now. If you can hold Florida State to under 20 points, Galaxy. Whether you win or lose is irrelevant. But if you can hold Florida State to under 20, well, if you hold them to under 20 and you lose, then it's a whole different conversation. But if you hold Florida State to under 20 points, I would declare Miami the favorites to win the Natty. Marco, our Louisville guy, 28-24 Miami. I think that is a respectable prediction, honestly. 31-24 FSU, says Almighty. 34-24, says Dang Bay. Miami 49. So he's got a high-scoring game from Johnny. Miami with 600 yards rushing, no passing attempts. All right. 38-21. Okay. But unfortunately, the bad guys win. So Ronald's got 38-21 Miami. Jay says, if we lose 31-10, I'll give you 50. Hey, just stand on it, Jay. That's all I say. Stand on it. 35-24 FSU. Beck throws 3 picks in the game. I forget about LM. LM didn't, for whatever reason, he didn't decide to show up tonight. 24-17 Miami. Okay, Caveman. That is a score that I definitely think plays into Miami's favor. I just have a hard time seeing y'all holding us to under 20. But I could see a 7-point game, something like that, especially with the way Miami plays offense. Like, that score wouldn't necessarily shock me, especially if Miami's able to control time of possession. So 24-17 Miami isn't a terrible prediction. 100-0. We still have Marco's talking about Louisville. No one cares. No one cares about Louisville. Picking the rival to beat you is nasty, says Jay. Hey, sometimes, guys, we got to be honest. Now, I'm not picking the rival, but I get it, man. Sometimes people just, that's their honest prediction. But, yeah, that's all I got for y'all tonight, man. Hit my like button on the way out if you didn't hit it on the way in. And as always, it's your boy Polk over here on 863 Seminole TV. Y'all stay classy, Seminoles, and we are out here. Go Noles.